Hello, lovely people. It's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. It's Wednesday and it's the middle of a busy week. I have shifts every weekday this week, but I've been managing to get in here every day to do some slow stitching. So that has been amazingly wonderful. Even last night I was on the couch and I just thought, I'm just going to put something on the TV because I don't want to get off the couch. But by about 8:30, I thought, no, I'm still going to come down here because my project was calling to me. So the thing I've been making the last few days is a fabric vessel. Very exciting. It's from a tutorial by Anne Wood, which I will link underneath the video. And I haven't done a step-by-step of it because it's her tutorial. It costs $8 US, so I don't feel like I can really, demonstrate every single step of it. I did get a little bit of footage of each stage of it. There's basically, you wrap something like this, which is what I use, just a medium-sized mason jar. You wrap it in fabric and then you apply fabric scraps to the outside. And your stitches are really messy because you're working on something rigid, and so there's no way you can keep it really neat and tidy. So once you've covered one side, you flip it inside out and you cover the other side. And then you take it off and take off the excess fabric around the top. So what I did after I had finished that is add a little bit of a strip with raw edges to the top edge just to make it look a bit nicer. And then I added some lime green cotton pearl 8 thread just to make it a bit more interesting, and some buttons. So what happens with this sort of thing is you're going to get stitches showing on both sides. So you might end up using a different side as your outside than what you thought you were when you started out. I think if you were concerned about having this stitching showing through from the other side, you could decide that the first side you worked on was going to be your inner, and then when you flip it and you do the second side, that could be your outer. So maybe save your favorite fabrics for that. I don't know, I like both sides. If I flip it out the other way, I love it on that side as well. You can see the backs of my lime green stitches. You can see the stitches holding on the patches from putting them on that side. And I think it's just really interesting. It's a very soft thing. It does have enough structure to hold up by itself. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it for anything. I might just admire it as is. But it's still soft. Soft and squishy. In one way, it would be nice to have it maybe a little bit more sturdy, but then you'd be having to sew through multiple layers, which might be more of a struggle. After I think I did this in about 4 or 5 sewing sessions over about 4 or 5 days. And after the 3rd day, I had a hole in my finger because I don't like wearing my thimble. Maybe I just need to find a smaller one. I'm sure I have different sizes of thimbles. This is the only one I can find. And it slips off my finger and just makes me feel really clumsy. So by the end of day 3, I needed to wear it. And by that time, things are getting a little bit thicker. But yeah, I just love this. I love how it looks. And surprisingly, even though I chose to use blue scraps out of the scrap bag, I didn't have that many blue fabrics in there, which is surprising. I guess I don't tend to buy blue fabric that much. But I loved it. So let me see. One of the other things I saw for a fabric vessel or pot was Annie Claxton, Arty Farty Annie, on Facebook. She had a video about making a fabric pot out of your recycling. So I can't remember what she used, but I know she possibly used something like this, which is just, once your tape runs out, you can use the core of this as a frame for a fabric pot. You can use anything really that's got some structure. It doesn't have to have a base. It could just be a ring. But what I did is I had a little root around in my recycling today, and I pulled out a nutritional shake jar, bottle, container, and I've cut the base off it. I measured up to give me a line to follow because I knew otherwise I'd go way off track. I measured up 3 inches from the bottom, drew a line with Sharpie, and then used a box cutter to work around. It doesn't have to be particularly tidy or level because the fabric's going to go over it at some point. And I could probably get a second one out of that. If I do another line further up, I could make a second container because you can create a base with cardboard or whatever covered in fabric and do that if it doesn't already have one. This one, I'm going to use the bottom of the thing. And whilst I did skim a lot of the video, because her video is quite long and I don't always have time to watch the whole thing. Sometimes I just want to see how she did it and how it ended up. I have measured the height of this. Obviously I did cut it to 3 inches, but when you take a tape measure and you measure all the way from the bottom up and over all the way to here, it's like an extra 1/4 inch. So that was 6 1/4, and then I measured around and that was 16 3/8. So what I've done is I've cut this piece of batting too big on purpose, 17 by 7 inches, to allow for me to do a little bit of scrap play and stitching, and then it will go around here like so, and whoop, I can't hold it, it's slippery. There's still a bit of water in it from me rinsing it out. Hold on a minute. So it will wrap around and tuck in like that. And then for the base, obviously I'll want to cover this. When I've attached this stitched thing around here, I will then figure out how big of a circle I need and then make another piece to sew to the side piece and cover that. And then I'll need to make a piece to go inside to cover the inside of the bottom as well. So those circles will probably be slightly different sizes because the inside diameter is probably a bit smaller. And then of course you could make a lid for it as well, but I doubt if I will. I think by the time I've done my rectangular piece and my 2 circles, I'll probably be happy to call it done. So yes, that's going to be the thrust of this video. Fabric vessels, the one I've already made, which I may have already put the clips in for at the beginning, or I may put them in after this, or I may have put it in over me talking. Obviously editing me is in the future, so I don't know yet. So you will have seen a little bit of the different stages of making that. But that was very enjoyable. You know, if you always think like, I want to be making something that's useful rather than just something to look at or to gather dust. I mean, this would be useful. You could keep sewing thread in it for making a future project. You could put your wonder clips in it. You could put embroidery threads in it. You know, I wouldn't want to put tall pencils in it because it would probably tip over. But yeah, it's a useful thing. It's a usable thing. Or you could just put it on your windowsill and enjoy the look of it. I think it's lovely. I really enjoyed that. As evidenced by the fact that I worked on it every day until it was done, even when I was tired. So I'm going to have a route through my scraps, and the next clip will probably be me building up the fabric and getting started on the stitching. I'm not sure how long this is going to take or when this video is going up, but I thought I just want to get it started so that the ball is rolling. Oh, and one totally unconnected aside. One of my little side interests is collage at the moment. I don't do it very much. I'm not very good at it. But I see so many YouTube videos and Instagram reels of people doing collage or mixed media, and it's just so fascinating. And I asked Mr. Stitches the other day, I said, do we have any old maps kicking around? Or maybe I should ask my friends to see if they've got any old maps kicking around, because I always think that old road maps are such a cool background for, say, a handmade book or a collage or something like that. He had no idea. I was going to look in my glove compartment in my car, but I completely forgot. And then today I was looking for a receipt for my vacuum cleaner, which I'm sad to say is not working how it should. And I want to see if I can do a warranty claim, but I'm not sure when I bought it. And I found road maps. I'm so excited. I have British Columbia, I have Greater Vancouver, Vancouver Island and Greater Victoria, Fraser Valley, and Kelowna Okanagan. So I very much doubt that Mr. Stitches wants to bother with keeping these anymore. And if we wanted more, we could probably go to BCAA and get some more. If they still give them out. They used to give them out to members, but most people use Google Maps these days, don't they? So I'm going to tuck these with my other craft things back here. And I'm sure he won't notice that I have acquired them. See you in a bit. And this is what our Sunday has looked like. It has been snowing mostly all day. And the flakes have just got super massive. And the view has disappeared. Further down at lake level it was rain, but up here it's been snow. And it went from 11 degrees Celsius at 6 a.m. to 4 when the snow arrived. Well, that was a lot quicker than I expected, because when I was rooting through my scraps, I found these 2 disappearing 9-patch blocks that I had played with and experimented with probably sometime last year. So all I had to do was trim this one down. I took the top bit and the bottom bit off to fit the strip of batting. And then the other one, I used a corner of it and trimmed it down. And I've turned under the raw edge. Little thread coming out here. Turned under this raw edge so that none of this has raw edges on it. It's just the very outside edges are raw, and that's fine. So what I'm going to start by doing is sewing across here. So I'm going to quilt my layers together, and I'm not sure how much stitching I'm going to do on this. Knowing me, I might just get a little bit carried away because I love it so much. But that has yet to be seen. But this is going to be another probably multi-day project where I need to start out by doing my stitching in here. And then I need to figure out exactly how to wrap this with it. I think I might cut it to the exact size for the height and length, and then blanket stitch. Why do I always hesitate at the word blanket? Okay, blanket stitch. If I blanket stitch around the edge, then when I want to attach my base to my wool, I can join the 2 sets of stitches together. I saw Sarah Homfray Embroidery do that once. She had a little fabric vessel that she was making, and I can't remember exactly how she made hers or which video it was, but I know that she was putting a base onto her vessel and she was attaching the 2 sets of blanket stitch together to hold the edges together. So maybe that's how I'll do it. Of course, I may change my mind on that at some point. think I'm wavering a bit too far away from the fold here because I don't want this to lift and have a raw edge sticking out. Nope, I think it's fine. I got up pretty early this morning. Mr. Stitches said goodbye to me at some ridiculously early time when it was still pitch dark. And I turned on the bedside lamp and I thought, 6 something, I might as well get up. Gives me more time for play. So I got up and I made myself a pot of tea rather than just a cup. And I took a tray through to the living room with the pot and a little jug of soy milk and my mug and a glass of water. I just love starting the day like that. It feels like such a luxury, even though really it's an everyday thing. And one of the things I did first thing this morning is I spotted that Annie had a new video out, and it's about her latest swap. Now, I have never, maybe I won't go around the edge because I might end up trimming it off, so I won't do that. Okay. Sorry, thinking aloud. So this is apparently Annie's 7th swap with all of her people who watch her channel and belong to her Facebook group. And I was just sort of watching the last one from a distance because I was fairly new to the group and I didn't know what was going on, and I was a bit late to join in anyway. But I think this one I'm going to join in with. Obviously, I'll link to her channel and the specific video underneath the video, my video, and you can check it out for yourself. It's called, I think, Helping Hands Around the World is the theme. And the idea is that if you want to join in, you have to watch that video, obviously, because there's certain rules and guidelines. And you can choose whether you want to participate internationally or just within your own country, because postage isn't cheap. It definitely isn't cheap. So she said we can do anything, just about anything we want, really, but she has given a guideline for what she thinks would be a nice idea, and it's bunting. And if you've been here any length of time, you'll know I like my bunting. So there's a set of templates that's available to download for free from her for different shapes of bunting, if you want to do it. And also some ideas for different kinds of hands, which you might want to include in your work. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I saw that today that Tori of Cool Kooky Creatures, she's already jumped in there and said she's willing to do 10 things. She's looking for 10 swapsters. And I was all excited thinking, oh, I want to be Tori's swap partner because she makes just the most amazing stuff. But she just said UK only. And I'm like, oh, can't you make an exception for me in Canada? Yes, not. I'm not going to ask her to do that. So I did see somebody else post who is in Canada and wants to find some Canadian partners. So I may well respond to that post later on today. I have no idea what I'll make. It's probably going to be bunting because I'm quite happy to go along with the general idea. And the nice thing about having multiple swap partners is if you had, say, even just 5 swap partners, then you'd get 5 bunting things to hang up in a line. Because if you just had one swap partner, it would be one piece of bunting, which wouldn't really be that exciting, would it? So the swap starts on the 1st of April, and the date by which you have to have things sent off to your partners is the 30th of June. So it's 3 months. So it's lots of time to make things. I think I'm veering off a bit closer to my line here. Just going to undo that one. So I'm very tempted to do this swap. I don't know whether to restrict it to Canada or not. And I'm not sure how I'll make mine yet, but I'm pretty sure I'll follow the bunting idea. There are different shapes you can make, of course, of pennant. There's triangles and there's curved ones and there's flag-shaped ones and with a point at the bottom. Yeah, I don't know yet. But I like the idea of connecting with other people and exchanging fun stuff. Oh, I'm glad I chose this one. This is Cotton Pearl 8 in a lovely, I don't know, what you call that, magenta? Very, very pretty. I definitely veered off a little off the parallel there, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm using my needle with the biggest eye here from that little pebble that Joan gave me. She sent me it all the way from England. Actually, I think, well, she sent it to me via Amazon, so I'm not sure if it came from the UK Amazon or Canadian Amazon, but it's a lovely set of needles, and I'm using them exclusively for my slow stitching and embroidery. So thanks, Joan. But you do need a fairly large eye with the Pearl 8, which is great because it actually makes it easier to thread because I can actually see where the hole is and I can get it threaded easily. Another nice thing is this does not have to be lined on the back, and I can just fasten off my knots there without worrying about it because, of course, it's going to be folded over like this. So it'll kind of be self-lining. I do have a few other shades of this Pearl 8 cotton, but the magenta just made so much sense with the colour here, but I may well do other colours. I wish I had more colours of this. One of these days I might go back to AliExpress and get a bunch more. There's a lovely green in there. I could use some green. There really isn't any yellow. But yellow would be fun too, even though there's none in the fabric. Peachy colour. There's a kind of an orange in there. So yeah, I'll probably use different coloured threads. I can't imagine doing the whole thing in one colour. That's just not me. This is going to be a nice way to keep my line straight. Just follow the seam. That'll be easy. We had a little bit of a health scare with Mr. Stitches again. A couple of years ago, he had a throat cancer diagnosis, which came out of the blue. And he went through 7 weeks of chemo and radiation for that. And of course, you know that there's going to be consequences to that down the line. So there's been a few minor things which he's had issues with, like because his neck was irradiated so thoroughly, he had problems with his salivary glands, making him have a dry mouth ever since then, and that sort of thing. But what we didn't anticipate fully was that it would fry his thyroid. So he'd been having quite a few unusual symptoms just lately, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor did a blood test, of course. And as soon as the results came in, the doctor called him and said, you shouldn't be standing upright right now. Your numbers, whatever the thing was that they find in the blood that is high and shouldn't be, he had a very, very high number. And I don't know, it was something like you should be 5 and his was 1,000. and I couldn't tell you what it was because I didn't ask him for the full details, but it was insanely high. And the doctor said, I don't know how you're even functioning right now. Like, he obviously just thought that he should be incapable of doing anything. And of course, Mr. Stitches has been going to work as usual. He's been going to the gym as usual, multiple times a week. But noticing a few things like very tight calves and extra tiredness and being very, very cold. Being very, very cold at night. And these are all apparently classic symptoms of hypothyroidism. And of course, as it turned out, the radiation obviously did such a good job on his thyroid that he basically has no thyroid function left. So now he's on medication for the rest of his life. And that's just how it's going to be. So I'm very grateful that there is medication for that, because thyroid function affects every single part of your body, basically. So that was a little scary, a little worrying. But he just got straight onto the medication. It's just one pill a day. And now it's just a case of keeping track of how he's feeling so that they can make sure that he's taking the right dose. But really, I don't know why I didn't foresee that sort of thing, but it didn't even occur to me. But when you think about it, the thyroid is right there in the neck, right where they were frying him. Microwaving him, maybe? Is that the better word? I don't know. And I've just realised I've not been following the time and I have to go to work very, very shortly. So I will get to the end of this piece of thread. I really shouldn't dig into my table like that. This is just a vinyl coating on a basic folding table. And I'm scratching it up like crazy. It occurs to me that if you had a lot of this fabric on your quilt, you could follow the dots to do super even quilting. That would be really cool. Oh, this feels so good. And it's quite easy because there's only the one layer rather than a ton of different scrappy layers. There. I'm going to leave it right there. Carry on with that later on. It's Thursday afternoon now, and I'm grabbing a quick bit of stitching time while my beans are in the pressure cooker. Last night, I put my timer on for an hour so that I didn't stay down here for too long, because I had to get up early this morning. I would have liked to have just carried on and on and on, though. I was having so much fun. So after I had done all the vertical pink lines, I added in some horizontals in some of the orange and the lime green. And now I'm going to start doing some blue. I'd like all of the areas to have horizontal and vertical lines of stitching. So let me see, where can I work on next? This quarter here, this quadrant here. It's not really a quadrant, is it? It would be a quarter of the total if it were a quadrant, but it's almost right. I'm going to work some horizontal lines along this bit and then see what else needs filling in. I did consider doing more fancy stitching, and then I thought, no, I want this just to be super easy and relaxing. So I'm just doing running stitch, and it's lovely. Zero pressure, minimal thinking. And if my lines aren't ending up exactly parallel or exactly the same distance from each other, I am not fretting about it. I wore my granny square fleece top to work today. I was a little bit hot, but I put up with it because I do love this top so much. Someone said, "Oh, I like your top." "Oh, wait, it's not crochet." And I'm like, she said, "I thought you made it." And I said, "Well, I did make it. I just sewed it from fleece. I didn't crochet it." I don't know. I always feel happier in colourful clothes for some reason. Funny how that works. Don't know about you, but sometimes when I lie in bed, my brain starts to go in all sorts of directions, and I'm trying to rein it back in and think about, if I'm going to be thinking, I like to try and think about nice things and not worrying things or annoying things. So every time my brain decided to go off track last night, I was imagining stitching on this. I think what I might do is, for the edge that's going to be on the outside at the bottom, I'll probably blanket stitch across. And then for the base, I'm going to draw a circle and then cut it out in cardboard and batting, and then a bigger one in fabric, and then wrap cardboard with fabric. And then the raw ends will be on the inside, and then I can just sew this bit and the circle around together. And the good thing about that is I will avoid having to actually sew a cylinder and a circle together ahead of putting it on the container, because you may know that's not one of my favourite things to do. I was just thinking, probably while I was driving, when I shouldn't have been thinking about sewing, but yeah, I'm a little bit obsessed. But I was thinking, if something happened and I needed to, say I was in hospital, or say I was on vacation and I needed lots of stuff to keep me occupied, and my hands worked fine, my eyes worked fine, then if I just took my pillowcase that I made out of scraps, that is full of scraps, plus some needles and thread, maybe some batting, I could just keep myself entertained for ages. One of the things I was looking online for earlier is paper fasteners, or brads. They're the ones which have like a little round head and two prongs that you stick through a hole in some paper maybe, and then you spread the prongs out behind your work. And I've seen those used in crafts or as eyes for things. And of course Michael's has them because, I work there, that's the first place I look. But they are very expensive compared to Staples. So I had a quick look on Staples' website just before, and they have, I think, a box of 100 for $6.99, which is nice and cheap. I think they only have them in gold, though. I was hoping to find them in black, but they didn't have them in black on the website. But I will go in there. Maybe tomorrow after work, I'll go in there just to see what they have. So when I get to a break in this, I will just show you the linen that I got. Okay, seeing as we've got you on the overhead, I will just grab this linen. So I don't know if you remember, but a while back I was talking about a place in Canada to go to get 100% linen. This is my meter of 100% linen from that place. It's called Pure Linen Envy. And I will obviously link to it underneath the video. Pure Linen Envy. And they have so many beautiful colors of 100% linen in, I think, probably 3 different weights. This is the everyday linen. It's, I think, the heaviest one. And when it comes, it's it's quite crisp. And so I tossed this in with my regular clothing laundry yesterday. I thought I'll just throw it in there, and that way I know it's been pre-washed, pre-shrunk, got all the sizing out of it. It frayed like crazy. There was a couple of socks that got strangled by all the ends coming off this, but I managed to rescue them. This colour is called Country, and it's an oatmeal colour. It's absolutely lovely. I know I'm not normally a neutral person, but as far as neutrals go, this is gorgeous. And I have a metre of it. So originally when I was looking at the website, the price was $20.50 a metre, which is a really good price for 100% linen. But when I put it in my cart, it was like another $20 to buy because of the postage. And I was telling my friend about it, and she said, "Oh, I've been looking for a source for linen because I want to make myself some bedroom curtains." So, of course, when she looked, she ordered some sample colours, and then she ordered like 11 meters of the stuff and threw in a request for another meter for me. And I think she also got another meter for another friend. And so I just paid her the cost of the fabric itself with no shipping because she got a really good deal on the shipping. So that was awesome. And it's a meter length, and the width of the fabric I think is 1.5 meters. So it's a nice big chunk of linen, and I wanted this to do some embroidery on. When I made those things, I think it was at the beginning of February, and I was doing a little patch with a stamp and some colouring in with my Derwent Inktense pencils. At that time, I wish I'd had this linen, but I didn't. So what I want to do, I think, is do some embroidery on these pieces, some small pieces, to apply to something else. No specific plans right now, but now that I have it, I'm very excited to use it. That was a little digression there. I'm just going to thread up another strand of blue, and then I should probably go and see whether my timer for my pressure cooker is beeping away. I don't have an instant pot which will switch itself off or anything. Just a good old-fashioned Kuhn Rikon pressure cooker on the hot plate on the stove. Where's my little scissors? There I am. So I will finish this section here, and then I will probably do this part here. Yeah, I think I'm probably not going to go with any more colours. I think I'll just stick with the colours I've used so far. So any area that I haven't already done a horizontal section of stitching on, I'll fill in. Here and here, here, and yeah, here. And then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. And we'll talk about what happens next. It's after dinner now, and I've come back and done a bunch more stitching on this. So the running stitch is all finished now. All done. And what I've also done is added blanket stitch along 3 sides. When I wrapped this around my plastic thing, I noticed that because of the quilting, it had shrunk a bit and my edges were only just meeting. So there was no room for a seam allowance. That was fine. So what I ended up deciding was to add the blanket stitch on those 2 ends as well as the bottom edge, so that I can sew them together to make a cylinder. And then what I will do, I need to make the base. So that's the next thing. Join these 2 short ends together, make the base. I'm pretty sure this isn't going to get finished tonight. So it was really easy just to do a kind of mattress stitch along this blanket stitch edging. I just picked up alternating. There was a couple of places I had to pick up 2 on one side just to balance it out so that it wasn't really wonky by the time I finished the seam. And then I pushed it onto here and tucked it in. So I don't think I mentioned, I never trimmed a bunch off it, even though I had cut the batting about 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch bigger. In the end, I just barely had to take off a sliver just to trim some batting back that was sticking out from behind. It fits fine. If anything, it's only just fitting fine. So what I did, I took this off again. I drew around the base onto some cardboard from this old cereal box. Then I cut a piece that was the same size from the batting I'm using. And then I cut a bigger piece from a random, this was like the first fabric I grabbed at the top of my scrap bag, and it just happened to be a big piece, enough to cut 2 circles out of. So I've cut the circles and I've allowed about 1 inch around for gathering it up and tucking those raw edges behind. And then for the top circle, which is going to go right inside here, I did drew around the top edge of this piece rather than the base, and then I shaved off 1/2 centimeter all the way around, 5 millimeters. That's about 1/4 of an inch, and just tested it. You can test it to make sure it fits in there with your fabric. And I want it to be snug, so I'm hoping that that's going to work out. So then I have a circle of batting that size. Getting all caught up in my needle and thread here. And then I have another circle of this fabric. It doesn't really go particularly with this, but you know what? It's going to be on the bottom and on the bottom. So if there's something in the container, you're not going to be looking at it anyway. Now, what happened to my needle and thread? There we are. Now I am going to just run a running stitch, put a running stitch around near the edge of the fabric here. I've knotted the end of the thread. I am just going to gather it up. Hope this works. And I will make sure that the padding is on the side of the cardboard that's facing outwards, so that if you touch it from the side that shows, when it's finished, it will feel soft. That makes sense? It makes sense. I feel like I'm really close to finishing this tonight, but I mustn't stay up too late because I'm working again tomorrow morning at 9, so I have to be very mindful of that. Making a little mob cap here. So I'm just going to be serious for a minute. Yeah, I know, right? I was just watching some videos while I was doing my slow stitching tonight and my blanket stitching. And I watched the first part of Ali's latest video on Little Drops of Wonderful. And she mentioned that Dan of the Bakery Bears has died. And I was really sad to hear that. I haven't been watching their podcast in recent years, but they put so much work into that thing. It was just like its own little TV show, and they'd been going for such a long time. And it was basically their job, right? That was how they made their money, I think. And he and Kay ran that thing together, and she was designing knitting patterns and baking things, and he was going out to different parts of England around where they lived, sometimes further afield, and they would do little travel segments. And I think that he might have had something some serious illness a few years ago, which he recovered from, I thought. And I'm wondering if that's maybe what caught up with him. I don't know. All I know is that Ali said that he had passed away. And so I'm just feeling sad on Kay's behalf tonight, and their daughter Bryony, of course. So yeah, it's always sad to hear that. I'm just wondering if I've done this wrong, because it seems awfully small compared to my bits and pieces here. So I'm putting my batting against the fabric and my cardboard behind that. I have done my running stitch outside the drawn line on my fabric. And for some reason it's looking a little snug. All right, so my fabric is gathered around the cardboard and the batting. Now, is this the inside or the outside? Okay, this is the inside. You see, I don't want to get them mixed up. It'll be pretty obvious if I do, though, with one being 1 centimetre bigger in diameter. So there's the inside circle done. It doesn't matter that it's messy on the back because, and I'm running out of voice here, it's never going to come out. Like, once it's in there, it's staying in there. I'm just going to do a test run. There's quite a bit of pleating going on in there, and I'm thinking that's probably inevitable. That fits perfectly. Okay. So far, so good. Okay, I can't stop now. I'm on a roll. I'm going to give you a hint. If you decide to do this, stick these two things together first. I'm going to go and get some glue stick just to get that done. I'm going to use my good old glue stick because the glue basting stuff obviously wasn't strong enough to attach my batting onto the cardboard, which is a bit shiny. I really just need them to hold together while I'm manipulating them into this piece of fabric here. Oh, you wouldn't believe how hot and bothered I got getting this thing on here. In fact, the knot of the thread started to slip through the fabric, and I didn't allow myself a long enough piece of thread. So it would be a massive pain in the you-know-what if it went and failed on me. So I am going to run another thread around there just so that we don't get a big explosion of stuff after I have sewn it to the base of my fabric pot. I'm just going to do another line of stitching here through all those nice folds. Just got to sew it on now. I'm going to do it with a pretty thread and get that embroidery needle out again. Thought I'd change you to the other view for the last section. Now let me see. Where am I going to start? Up from the inside, maybe? There. Now my knot is going to be hidden. All right. So here's my thought. I'm going from a blanket stitch, and then I'm going over to here. In fact, we're going to do it the other way. I'm going to take a bite out of the edge of that and then come back under a horizontal thread. Aha, first stitch made. So take a bite out of the base and then under that horizontal thread. I pulled these stitches out because I didn't like how it was going, so I'm going to try again. Apologies if my hair is in the thing. I need to look close enough so that I can take a neat stitch out of the side edge of this. I wonder if it would be easier with the odd thing. I don't know. I think if I take it off the container, then I think what will happen is that I might end up with a whole bunch of excess fabric by the time I get to the other side. Well, once I started sewing this without trying to keep it under the camera, it was a lot easier. I did skip a couple of my blanket stitches to try and make sure that I wasn't left with a big gaping gap at the end, and it turned out okay. Just didn't want it to look too messy because my running stitches were so neat. The blanket stitches aren't particularly great. Anyway, it fits fine like that, and now I can just do my last fold into the container. Try and push it in as far as possible. I suppose it's inevitable that you're going to get some pleating in there. Actually, it probably works in my favour that the bottom of the container is raised in the middle and depressed and around the outside, because the fabric fits into that depression rather nicely. Okay, final step, putting this guy back in. And it's finished. Oh, I'm so pleased I finished that tonight. I feel very accomplished. That's lovely. And that's quite a practical container because it has the rigid walls, so it could hold just about anything without collapsing in on itself. My scissors in there, my thread, my glue stick, my needles. Look at that. I love it. And you know what you could do is, if you did make another lid, probably the same size as the base there, you could make a little hinge so that it had a little open and shut lid. How fun would that be? Well, my lovelies, it's time to say goodbye for this one. 2 little fabric vessels completed. Very different results, different construction, different methods, but both very cute, I think. I love them. I really enjoyed making those. This one was way quicker than this one. But speed is not really the main criteria for enjoying something necessarily, unless you're trying to make a last-minute gift. But it helped that I had this patchwork fabric sitting in the scrap bag from a previous experiment. I'll be editing this tomorrow because it's far too late for me to start doing that now. I really need my sleep. I need my beauty sleep, you know. So whenever it goes up, I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment if you like it. If you're planning to make anything similar to this, let me know. And always remember, if you can, hit that thumbs up button. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope to see you next time. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing next time, but it's going to be something crafty and fun. So I'll see you then. Bye for now.